Welcome back. I'm going to do a couple of extra examples, and I'll do question 5. You've been asked to do 5A, I'll do 5B. It does use fractions and negatives, and I'll also do question 10, as the setup's really quite important for those. On top of that, I'm also going to show you a way to input it into your calculator, just making sure that the input's done correctly. Therefore, you're going to have more success with your answers. So once again, like in the previous video, I'm going to set this up. We need to evaluate. So we should have our expression we're evaluating. And then I can substitute. Obviously, I've got my x, I've got y, and they're going to go in for our values here. All right, I'm going to look at substituting in now. 2, and this is times negative a third minus 3 bracket 1 over 6. And there's a times in there too. Just remember that in between our coefficient and pronumeral, we have multiplication. Now this technically could go straight into your calculator, but I'm going to do a little bit more work here. I've got 2 times negative a third, so 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 and a third. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3 over 6. I've got 2 fractions here. We need to have a common denominator with fractions before we can add or subtract. Notice that we're subtracting. So the common denominator I can create is 6. If I multiply by 2, multiply by 2, I would get minus 4 on 6 minus 3 on 6. Here I can now look at my numerators up the top, here and here, and I have minus 4 minus 3, which will give me minus 7 on 6. Or we can write that as a mixed numeral, minus 1 and 1/6. I'm going to bring up my calculator here and just show you about the input. So if I go up to the second step, up here and here, I can actually input this really successfully in my calculator if I do it correctly. And I could have 2 multiplied by negative. Now use the negative button here, and it's 1 over 3. 1 over 3. Oh, let's get that in the right spot. Arrow across it. 1 over 3. Oh, apologies, close my bracket there. And we are subtracting. And we have 3 times, let's put the times in, 3 times negative 1/6. Close that off. Arrow across, close the brackets. If I press equals, I there have my answer as an improper fraction. This S to the D button here, press that, it converts it, second function shift, and I get my mixed numeral. Alright, moving on to question 10. Once again it says to evaluate, that means we're going to get an answer. This time I have 3 terms. Oh, sorry, 3 pronumerals. I have an R, I have a P, and there is given a Q. So if I set it up properly with my evaluate, P plus 2Q all that times 3R. So I have to do my substitution. P is 7 plus, this is 2 multiplied by minus 2. Now, order of operations would mean that would get done first, all divided by 3 multiplied by 2. I'm going to do some calculations here with my brackets, which give me 7 plus minus 4 over 6. We talked about in the example that if you end up with a plus and minus here next to each other, plus and minus, it's going to be minus. So this is actually 7 minus 4. You can check that on your calculator if you're unsure. So 7 subtract 4 is 3, and that is all over 6. If 3 over 6 we can identify as being the same as 1 over 2. Now let's have a look back in our calculator. I'll clear everything I've got there, and let's put in our where we've substituted. So we've written out our question here. In this one, we've written the question. Here we've applied our substitution. Now we can actually put this in our calculator, and I will do it. We have 7 plus bracket. Actually, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to put a big bracket around. I'm going to keep everything on this top line together before I use my fraction line and include everything on the bottom line. Grouping things together is a great way of not making errors. 7 plus, and I can just use another set of brackets is fine, 2 times, now use the minus button, 2 times minus 2, close, and I'll close it again. Now you can either use the fraction here, but we know that a fraction line means divide, so I'm going to use the divide symbol. 3 times 2, close that off. Now I can go to equals, and I've got 0.5. It's in decimal form here. SD, it is now in fraction form. SD, we can move between the two. We don't need the shift SD this time because it is not a mixed numeral. But grouping things for your calculator, particularly negatives, makes it really, really nice and reduces your margin for error. Thank you.